Hello, beautiful people.
So now that she's been out for 5 days, I have a pretty good idea, I think, of her place in the meta. So we can go through the pre-release analysis and figure out what we got right and what we got wrong. She's a Hydro unit, which is a good thing. There's no such thing as a bad Hydro character. The Hydro character that's arguably the worst, which is generally Barbara, is still pretty solid.
True.
It's
Very
very
true.
difficult to make a Hydro
True and
character that's
base.
actually useless. She has a special charge attack, which happens when spending 5 seconds out of combat. You're gonna have to wait for the thing to be ready. But that that shit is actually really annoying, right? Because it works more like Sarah than like Ganyu. So, ugh. Also means that if you do it a little bit too early, you're not gonna get it. Which means in order to be safe, you're probably gonna try to do it a little bit late. Here's my 5 days in interpretation of Breakthrough Barb. Breakthrough Barb is effectively something that you can min-max. You can generally include it in your rotation without it costing you too much. Right? You do your E, you catch the enemy, Breakthrough Barb Q. You can get your Q going before you catch the particles, and it's fine. Realistically, it doesn't really do that much. And doing those like relatively mechanically difficult cancels is like not that worth it when you look at the damage you get out of it. Especially considering your Breakthrough Barb talent levels scales with your normal attack talent levels, and it's the only thing it affects. And it's such a small portion of your damage that it's relatively resin inefficient even if you do it. And it's just a pain in the ass. Is it worth doing if you want to get the max out of her kit? Yes. But is it worth the time you're going to put in for it? Or are you going to see like significant returns out of it? No. No, you won't. It makes you move fast, and then if you go through enemies at the end of the duration, all the enemies you move through will take damage. If you're gonna stay on her anyways, you might as well do a charge attack. Right? So I'd say that's probably an accurate assessment. All right, if you just do it normally, if you just do Q, auto, E, auto, and then swap out, Q, auto, E, auto, swap out, you don't catch the particles on her. And that means you're getting increased energy requirements on your Yelan. There's teams where that's what you want to do, but generally it's better to catch particles on her. And so what you want to do is you want to do Q, auto, E, auto, and then stay until you catch the particles, and then you can swap out. But since you're already staying on her, might as well get a Breakthrough Barb in. So Q, auto, E, auto, Breakthrough Barb, swap out. That wasn't perfect at all, but you get the general idea. Deals AoE damage and creates an exquisite throw which aids her in battle. An exquisite throw is basically very similar to Xingqiu's burst. One thing that playtesting has shown us so far is that while it is similar to Xingqiu's burst, it comes out earlier, which means if you cancel your auto attack early on Yelan, you can actually get the Clarion Dice proc in situations where you wouldn't get the Xingqiu Swords proc. So if I use both Xingqiu and Yelan's burst at the same time, and then I go on Xiao, and I use his burst, and then I do auto jump, we're only getting the Yelan procs. We're not getting the Xingqiu procs. If you want to get the Xingqiu procs, you have to get a more significant portion of your N1 animation has to go through. So let's do it again, just to show it. Right now, with trying to get it, I know that that is a thing that people are very happy about, and I would say I am as well, because it does make her work a little bit better with Xiao, because it comes out earlier, you get your Hydro application earlier, which can either facilitate or make more difficult certain setups. I know that for Hu Tao, one of the setups you could do with Xingqiu and Thoma, you can't really do with Yelan, is you apply your element, then you do Thoma, QE, and if you get the timing right on that, because Thoma's burst proc comes out faster than Xingqiu's burst proc, you could get a Pyro Swirl. Because the Thoma wave would hit, then your Kazuhaki would hit, and then because the Xingqiu burst is delayed, it would hit afterwards. You can do a rotation like that on Xingqiu. Because Yelan's swords come out earlier, you can't. What I do want to show is basically, with the way that Yelan's internal cooldown works, if you get two of her burst procs a little bit more quickly than once every second, which is possible, sometimes this happens a little bit more quickly, what can happen is, instead of getting a vape followed by two non-vapes, or a hydro application followed by two non-hydro applications, what can happen is a vape, not vape, and another vape, right? The 3Ks are vapes. I had my Yelan on 100% crit rate, right? These are all crits. Effectively, it is gonna happen relatively often that you actually get 2 hydro applications in your wave proc. That being said, it's basically impossible to control when it happens, and it probably won't happen more than once or maybe twice per burst. So realistically, it doesn't affect your hydro application all that much, but it is a relevant thing that people might want to know about. Much like Xingqiu, she can be used to apply hydro off field. And because of that, it's very possible that you'll use her in teams where you want to spend more than 10 seconds off of Yelan onto your Hu Tao, onto your whatever, right? And if that's the case, then this 10-second cooldown won't actually be 10 seconds. You'll use it like after 15 seconds. But the problem with that is true. I think that the 10-second cooldown is a fucking lie. I think that you can get certain rotations where you get, or certain teams can get 2 E's per rotation, but most of the time you're actually gonna get 1 E per rotation in your Yelan teams. That hurts her ER requirements a lot. You would end up doing only 1 E per rotation. Is that, boy, you're gonna need a lot of energy recharge. Yeah, I did a few calcs on her energy requirements. If you only get 1 E with Favonius, you still need 260 energy recharge. I think that makes sense. Like a good example of a team where you would only use 1 E is a Hu Tao VV Vape team. Like, you're just really not generating a lot of energy in a team like that, and you can't really get 2 E's per rotation, so you're gonna end up with like really high ER requirements. You will not be able to reach the ER requirements without Fav. Basically, it's rough. So most of the time you're gonna try to get 2 E's per rotation. There's obviously I think that was somewhat of a, I wouldn't say it's wrong, because it is true that you want to get 2 E's per rotation and you try to get 2 E's per rotation, but just because a team can only get 1 E per rotation doesn't make it inherently bad. So I would say it was wrongly framed, at least. Like other ways to get around that, you can use a Wouldn't Sac make your life better there because you use E 2 times? Yes and no. The difference in particles basically makes for about 50% ER. Now the difference between those 2 weapons is that Fav gives about 30% more ER, so it's only about a 20% ER difference, but what you're paying for that 20% ER is a lot more field time on Yelan, and also the fact that, I mean, if your Sac doesn't proc, you're just fucked. If your Fav doesn't proc, you can just stay on Yelan until it procs. It's gonna proc, because you're building crit on Yelan. Even on low refine, if you got a 60% chance for it to proc at refine 1, let's say you have about 60% crit chance, it's a chance of 36% that it procs on each hit. But because Yelan, when you do Q, you get 1 hit. So you get another 3 hits for a total of 9 hits at least. If you're in AoE, you're getting more. The odds of not getting a proc are about 2%. It's so incredibly unlikely. With Sac, the odds of not getting a proc at R1 is just 60%, which is and even at R5, it's 20%. You look at R5 Favonius, 0.03%. It's just not happening. You're always getting your proc. Would I ever recommend Sac over Fav? No. I think a lot of people underestimate running 2 hydro units together because they think about the hydro resonance, which you get when you have 2 hydro units, and they're like, well, that's completely terrible. I don't want this. Which, you know what? Good fucking point. However, if the hydro characters are good enough that running them together would get you more than a resonance would, then it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I think that was a very good take. Xingqiu Yelan's broken. Like, Xingqiu Yelan together, very good. Hydro resonance doesn't matter. You're doing it because they're just really good together. When the party has a 1, 2, 3, 4 elemental types, Yelan's max HP is increased by 6, 12, 18, 30%. So you're never gonna go only 1 elemental type. And then you can get basically 6% from running 3 elemental types and another 12% from running 4. It's a relevant buff, but 10% more DPS isn't really enough to justify running a team with 4 different elements just for that. But it's not. I think that was also a pretty good take. Yelan's passive is it's useful, but it doesn't do enough to justify running 4 different elements just to get that passive. If your team happens to run 4 different elements, it is gonna be nice for Yelan. Yelan is gonna appreciate that. That's gonna be Pog. But the damage you get out of it isn't high enough to make it like worth building your team just around that. Gain 25% more rewards when oh my. Okay, this is actually probably the best expedition passive we have. Like, I was wrong. I actually, okay. Be real, nobody, like literally no one goes onto their expeditions, runs a 20-hour expedition, and then comes back exactly 15 hours later for the Bennett passive to actually be useful. Wait, did I just actually log in literally exactly 15 hours. No shot. Oh my god. I am so sorry. Honestly, biggest mistake of the whole video. Like, literally no one does that. Finally, so long as an exquisite throw is in play, your own active character deals 1% more damage. Okay, so that was wrong. You don't actually do EQ on Yelan. Generally, you do QE. There are some rotations where you do EQ, but it's really nice to be able to QE instead to get the additional wave proc. Now, if you QE and then catch your particles, and so you actually kind of start really like getting your stuff here, right? This is when your carry swap in, and if you stay for 10 seconds, you start at 5, you'll finish at 14, which is a damage bonus of closer to 30%, 30 to 35% instead of about 20%. So it is better than I gave it credit for in my pre-release, that's for sure. But yeah, that being said, that 34% damage bonus is still damage percent, which means it gets those diminishing returns just like any other damage percent buff. So if you already have, let's say on Raiden, right, you have an Electro Goblet, you have about 250 ER with Emblem, you have 150 of that is getting converted by her Ascension 4 passive. You have the catch, right? You're already starting with 141, which is giving you a damage percent multiplier of 241. And so that 30% damage percent buff is only an effective about 14% DPS increase. It's still relevant, but don't see this 30 and conclude, oh wow, she's increasing your DPS by 30. She's not. It's always less than 30% of a DPS increase. Because of actually, for this weapon sheet, there was one relatively significant mistake that affected some of the ranking of the weapons. I did not swap the goblet to HP goblet for high damage percent weapons, and I have corrected this sheet since, and it is showing slightly better results for Moon's Moon and Stringless. Not significantly better, but slightly better. They're still not better than Favonius. The new free-to-play weapon is it's quite a bit behind. It's not good on Yelan. Yeah. Unless they change the stats, obviously they could, right? They did not change the stats. I think Fading Twilight is a pretty underwhelming weapon on Yelan. Favonius Warbow is available for free by doing the story, which means this is a free-to-play weapon, which means the rest of the weapons don't really matter. Okay, that is somewhat inaccurate because in teams where you end up running Double Hydro with like Raiden or on-field Yelan or whatever way where you can cheat out more energy generation, you can actually get your ER requirements to be low enough that Favonius gives you too much. And if that is the case, then you can then see situation where Moon's Moon becomes the best 4-star option and Stringless becomes a good alternative. That being said, I would say that for the most part, you still just want to run Favonius most of the time. Very unfortunate accident, and use your Favonius Warbow as fodder. You can go for either Recurve Bow or Slingshot as options that are about 12%. Yeah, those would also be better than Favonius if you don't actually need the energy recharge. The only 5-star option that is going to be better is going to be the Aqua Simulacra. Okay, I would say that my current understanding of her weapon priority has changed slightly. I value Aqua even less than I did when I made this. I think that Elegy in almost every team is the best weapon she can have. I think that otherwise it's a toss-up between Aqua and Favonius depending on how much energy she needs. Generally Aqua will be slightly better, but Favonius generating those particles for the rest of your team can be incredibly valuable. Let's look at her artifacts. I think that the first important thing to note about Yelan is that because she scales with HP only, and because there's not a lot of relevant HP buffs, then you actually get a slightly higher value out of HP percent substats and main stats. What I want you to take away from this is HP circlets are very good on Yelan. HP substats are very good on Yelan. So just like it can apply to the comparison to crit, what I hadn't realized at that point is that there are bows that give a lot of damage percent, namely Stringless and Moon's Moon at high refinement. Because of that, it's not just HP circlet that can be viable, it's also HP goblet in some situations. As usual, use the optimizer, it will tell you what your best artifact options are. The general 2 possible sets that you're going to want to go for are going to be either 4-piece Emblem, which is going to be the set that's going to give her the highest personal damage.
I would say that the only addendum that I would add to this is if it's possible for you to run a team with very, very low ER, where the 20% ER on the 2-piece Emblem is going to get wasted, and because you're running low ER, you're not getting that much value from the 4-piece, then you can run into situations where 2-piece is better, but like realistically, in most teams that we're going to end up recommending, that is not the case. So I wouldn't focus on it too much.
Yelan's personal damage output is actually not bad. So it's about 5k per like sword or whatever you call it, which is about 15k per coordinated attack with Emblem. High investment Yelan damage output should be very similar.
So this was a bit of an like offhand comment. I didn't mean to say she does exactly as much damage as Xingqiu, but I saw that a few people kind of got that from the video. So I am sorry about that. I should have explained myself better. I meant that it was like within the same realm as Xingqiu, in the sense that like it is significant damage that like you don't want to just sacrifice for a 4-star set. In many situations, Yelan will actually deal higher damage than Xingqiu, so they're not quite exactly the same, especially if you don't have Constellations on Xingqiu.
That makes the idea of going for a 4-star set, so Instructor or Exile, a lot less appealing.
Yeah, that is accurate though.
From going 4-star set, even if your stats are good. And that's gonna make it so that's most
this
of the
part
time,
is speculation, and I think it was accurate.
It's just not going to be worth it.
Yeah.
Unless...
so I think that was an accurate assessment. I don't think it's worth it most of the time to go for 4-piece Instructor or 4-piece Exile on your Yelan. It is better off to stick to 5-star sets because she does a very like significant amount of personal damage.
So 4-piece Noblesse is going to be good for team DPS. Also,
and not good for her own damage. And when you look at Noblesse, you can just snapshot Noblesse, and because it lasts long enough, you get good value out of it. I think that in a lot of situations, you're still going to be better off running Noblesse on a different unit than your Yelan, because, right, mainly, most of Yelan's good teams include Xingqiu right now, and I'd rather run Noblesse on Xingqiu than on Yelan most of the time. Xingqiu generally doesn't do as much damage as Yelan in teams where they're both there together, and so having Xingqiu lose the damage from Emblem is generally better than having Yelan lose the damage from Emblem, and so putting Xingqiu on Noblesse is generally slightly better. On top of that, because Xingqiu's burst lasts longer, you generally start with his burst in your rotation, so you get it before everything else, which is good if you want to snapshot your Noblesse stuff.
There's obviously going to be the possibility of running 4-piece Blizzard Strayer.
I think that's fair. I think in freeze teams, you'll generally not be in situations where you run low ER Yelan, so I think Emblem's always better than Blizzard for her, even in freeze teams.
Here's a rundown of her constellation and constellations and how worth they are. Not worth, not worth, not worth.
I think I slightly underrated C1. I think C1 is a little bit better than I expected it to be. Because the thing is, when you're a whale, you can get such good stats on your characters that stuff like this is basically going to be enough to one-shot a mob. And so it is good, but it's definitely not worth the money. I think that's fair to say. Fuck that, man. So C1 is a little bit better than I gave it credit for. I still wouldn't recommend it because all it effectively does is it makes you able to run a bit less ER, and I don't think that's worth the fucking $300 a constellation cost.
C2, pretty good. At the end of the day, Yelan's never really going to be the highest portion of your team DPS, so going for constellations on her is generally not going to be as valuable as going in constellation for your other units.
Yeah. That being said, though, C2 does have some value because it increases her Hydro application, which makes it easier to run her as a solo Hydro unit for Pyro carries. It can be somewhat difficult to run her solo Hydro for Pyro carries. We're going to get into that in the team section soon, though, so I'll hold off until then to talk about that.
I mean, maybe some Dolphins that want to use her in specific teams, but definitely not.
So again, right, the C2 isn't something you get just because you like Yelan and you want to get her more damage. It's something you get if you want to play her in a specific team where you actually need the Hydro application.
Whether this shares ICD with this or not, you're always going to get one Hydro application from the initial hit and one Hydro application from the exquisite.
All right, Zay. I'm pretty sure she applies 2 units, not 1 unit on her initial burst hit. But yeah, this is a blame the editor moment. I think the main thing with VV Vape is, well, after your setup, you don't have any form of elemental application other than Hu Tao and Yelan. But as you can see, right, towards the end of my infusion, I run out of Hydro and it starts applying Pyro. That is basically what you can expect out of this team. Now, when exactly you run out will depend on like the exact timing of your cancels. That being said, that doesn't mean the team doesn't work. Because Yelan's burst doesn't last long enough, it's harder to do this because, well, Yelan's burst will expire before Hu Tao's infusion. Now, because Yelan's damage buff is significant, that kind of makes up for it. And the team does perform relatively similarly to what a Xingqiu variation of this team would do. But you do not have any form of defensive utility anymore. You don't really notice it that much, but holy fuck, Xingqiu's like damage reduction and healing is incredibly significant. Xingqiu versus Yelan on a Hu Tao team. You can make Yelan work, so if you want Xingqiu on your other team, it's definitely potentially something you want to do. But it's not like necessarily what you want. So hopefully the editor can put like the side-by-side comparison between Xingqiu and Yelan. And you'll notice that the charge attacks are hitting for less, but we're able to actually vape for the whole duration instead of only for a part of it. It's a lot easier to vape all our hits because Xingqiu's hydro application is a lot more consistent. Obviously, I'm more used to the Xingqiu team, so I played it better. Don't take that side-by-side comparison to mean necessarily Yelan doesn't work and Xingqiu does. But all in all, I do still prefer Xingqiu as a solo hydro for Hu Tao teams. But at least Hu Tao VV Vape teams are not the only teams where Yelan is good. So let's keep going.
I don't know how well it'll work with Xiangling to play
yeah.
it back.
I don't like Yelan very much as solo hydro for Xiangling. That is something I stand by from this pre-release analysis.
I think mono hydro is like It's not really mono hydro that works. It's more like double hydro, double geo, or double hydro, double like one geo, one animo, things like that. But you can actually get away with something like Kokomi or Ayato on field with Yelan, Albedo, Zhongli. They're not teams that are quite as strong. I don't think she's gonna be like better than Xingqiu in those teams. She's probably gonna be very similar.
I'd say that was probably wrong. I'd say that if you're running a team where you're not relying on the hydro application or the defensive utility of Xingqiu, then Yelan is just a strict upgrade. I think that's fair. So in teams like Mono Hydro or Wet Rock, I think Yelan is better than Xingqiu.
But I think Taser team is another one of the teams where you can use both of them together very well. If you look at the initial Sucrose Taser team, it has a pretty good balance of AoE and single target damage. But if you find yourself in single target situations, replacing Beto with that second Hydro unit with Yelan might actually be pretty good. Soup teams are always pretty good just because transformative reactions are really good. I don't think she's gonna be as good as other Hydro units on them though.
I don't know about that one. So the main thing about soup teams is if Yelan can apply enough Hydro, then she is the best Hydro for soup teams in most cases. But it is hard for her to apply enough Hydro, and in a lot of teams it's gonna be like, yeah.
I think that's it. So now let's give like a verdict.
Yeah, so my conclusion on Hu Tao VV Vape is I would still rather run Xingqiu. That being said, if you have a C2 Yelan, and then you can get away with running like Xinyan or Yanfei or Thoma as your as like a shielder / defensive option relatively easily, and you can still apply more than enough Hydro through the C2, then she's a better option than Xingqiu. But otherwise, I would still rather run Xingqiu.
Double Hydro, very obviously good. Hu Tao Xingqiu.
It's more than just good. I think Hu Tao Double Hydro is now the best Hu Tao team. VV Vape probably scales a bit better with Wailing still, because you can go for like a completely min-maxed, like a highly buffed Hu Tao. But I think that for general purposes, Double Hydro is better. And it's also a lot easier to play, which like goes into why I think it's better.
Place instead of the VV Vape, where you would have just Double Hydro either with like Fischl maybe, to get some over vapes on your Hu Tao, with Zhongli to just increase all of your team's damage, with Kazuha to increase the Hydro unit's damage, with Xiangling if it's enough Hydro for the both of them.
Oh, wait! I don't remember saying this! Wait, I don't remember saying this! What the fuck? Okay, well, I guess I did talk about it. I didn't know if it was enough Hydro. Now we know that it basically is. You won't get every single one of your vaporizable hits vaped, but because of the way that their attacks work, because Xingqiu and Yelan apply Hydro very closely together in terms of time, even if you miss a vape, you apply Pyro, you'll be able to immediately remove that pyro and reapply hydro with 2 fast hydro applications. And so you're vaping basically all of your relevant attacks because this double hydro app happens right before a Hu Tao charge attack every time. Very pog. Oh yeah, I showed VV Vape with Xingqiu. I can show double hydro. Now, it is a little bit treacherous to test this on the Primo GIGACHAD because the Primo GIGACHAD has a very large hitbox where Xiangling can actually hit him twice for every time her burst rotates around her. It's not the end of the world, whatever. Oh, we also have the Pyro one. Okay, yeah, this is gonna be scuffed. Anyways, we can still get it. It's still not much of a problem. Like, we're vibing. We can still win rotation. It doesn't have a complicated setup. And honestly, having played it in Abyss a lot, it feels really fucking good. Oh yeah, also, this is a team with 4 characters from Liyue. So if you have a Lithic Spear for your Hu Tao, that can also be pretty good. I would say that the other Double Hydro teams that are good are definitely... The official Double Hydro is very good. Zhongli Double Hydro, pretty good. Kazuha Double Hydro, pretty good. Basically, every variation of Double Hydro with a functional 4th character just works really well. Even if you don't have a 4th character, just 3 units, Hu Tao Double Hydro can fucking clear like pretty easily. And then adding a unit means you're adding damage. You can add Bennett if you want. You can add fucking Albedo. You can add Kazuha. You can add Venti. You can add Jean. You can add Raiden. You want that E? Sure. Use Raiden just for her E with tenacity or some shit. Like, you can basically get away with anything as your last option. I've been liking Xiangling for offensive option. Well, Xiangling and Fischl as the good offensive options, and Zhongli as a good defensive option, with Kazuha as a good like crowd control option if you need one, or Sucrose also works. I think that with other pyro carries outside of Hu Tao and Bennett, I think that Yelan Double Hydro is a core that can make any pyro carry work, just because your Double Hydro can basically carry by themselves. Yelan and Xingqiu are such strong units that if you just have both of them, it doesn't matter what you put on the rest of your team, you can still clear. Any pyro character can be a vape carry with Double Hydro, and I would say that when it comes to single Hydro with only Yelan, it might be better than Xingqiu for Yoimiya, but not really better than Xingqiu for anyone else. Basically mostly interchangeable with Xingqiu in those teams. Then when it comes to National, so with Xiangling as your carry, I don't like it very much, but we've seen the emergence of a new team, which is on-field Bennett with Xiangling and Double Hydro. So, Xingqiu Q, E, Yelan Q, Auto E, Bennett Q, Auto E, Auto Xiangling Q, Auto E, Bennett Auto E, Bennett Auto E, Bennett Auto E, Yelan E, Bennett Auto E. You can get another one, and then you start over. This team's pretty strong. Yem Sands, yes, do not go attack signs on Bennett. You're griefing if you do. I didn't think it was gonna be enough, but it is, and that's fucking pog. When it comes to Rational, which I didn't include here, Rational is also very good with Yelan. It seems to perform very similarly to the Xingqiu variation. I'm not entirely sure which one is better, but they should both be pretty strong.
National, I'm gonna say fine as well, because I don't think she's actually gonna be better than Xingqiu. Maybe that's just me underestimating her here, but it doesn't look like she provides more than Xingqiu would on this team.
Yeah, and just straight up National, like Sucrose National, I stand by that, yeah.
Freeze teams, I think they're going to be pretty good. I like Xingqiu and freeze teams a lot. I think she's going to be good.
Yeah, but I don't like freeze teams with her all that much. I think I stand by that.
Mono Hydro, it's fine. I've seen a few calcs on Mono Hydro that were actually a bit better than I was expecting it to be. I don't know what to call it. Like Double Hydro, Double Geo. Wet Rock, oh no. If you're putting both Xingqiu and Yelan on your team, bro, please get a Pyro unit in there. Please have someone take advantage of that. God.
I mean, not necessarily a Pyro unit. You can also get away with an Electro unit and an Animo unit, taking advantage of the Hydro app in another way. But yeah, like not taking advantage of the Hydro app when you have 2 Hydro units just feels so wasteful.
Taser teams, good but hard. because if you play her without a healer, unlike Xingqiu, she doesn't actually provide additional damage reduction and healing, which means it kind of forces you into a team with a healer or to just never get hit. Cookie Shinobu, don't run Cookie.
I stand by that one.
And if you do have a healer, it's probably a Hydro unit. And if you already have a Hydro unit, Yelan isn't necessary. Now finally...
Okay, is it true that she's not necessary? Yes, but I think she is better than I give her credit for here in Taser teams as a second Hydro option. Either paired with Xingqiu to replace like Beidou in Sucrose Taser, or paired with Kokomi to replace Beidou. I think she's just a strong option in Taser as a second Hydro in general. I mean, she's a strong option as a second Hydro in all teams in general. This is being recorded 5 days after her banners came out. I'd say she was a slightly easier than usual unit to figure out because we had a good comparison point in Xingqiu, and she is very similar to him in a lot of ways, which makes it easier to ask yourself, well, is she doing better than Xingqiu in this case or in that case? Is she doing worse in this case or that case? How does she work with him, right? Those are like the main questions that we had to ask ourselves, and we already know what kind of direction we wanted to take our testing like before her release, which isn't always necessarily the case. But yeah, I mean, the only thing that she does that Xingqiu cannot do is pair well with Xingqiu, because you can't play two Xingqius, right? But you can play one Yelan and one Xingqiu. That's the only thing that she can't do and Xingqiu can't, and it's probably the thing that she's the best at. It's probably the biggest reason to go for Yelan over a different Hydro unit. So many of her good teams where she performs well are with Xingqiu. I think that the main reason you might want to pull for Yelan instead of pulling for, I don't know, Ayato or Child or Kokomi is because those Hydro units don't work as well with Xingqiu as Yelan does. I think those other Hydro units work probably arguably better than Yelan as standalones for specific teams. So for example, Ayato or Kokomi in Taser, Child in Vape, like in International with Xiangling. And so I think that the main reason to go for her over another 5-star Hydro is her synergy with Xingqiu. And it is good synergy. It's really good. But yeah, so I think my closing thoughts on Yelan post-release is don't spend money on this shit game. It is not worth it. I'd say that the only constellation that, like, if you saved up your Primogems for could be worth going for is C2. If you want to play her as solo Hydro with Hu Tao and you want to be able to run Thoma with her or something like that. But like, honestly, meh. That's it for the post-release. If you did pull for Yelan, let me know how you like her. If you didn't pull for Yelan, very, very cool. I'm glad you watched a video on a unit you don't have just to, I don't know, support me, I guess. Very pog. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching, everyone. And I don't have an outro, but what do I say? Goodbye, I guess. Bye, YouTube. Oh yeah, true. Smash that like button. Leave a comment. Subscribe. Do the thing. Don't forget to lament.